Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
All right, I hit the wrong button. Hello, welcome to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Brendan Labarre, the host of Game Over Winnipeg, and with me is Ruby here of Game Over Calgary. Ruby, how are you doing this evening? I'm doing quite excellent. The Winnipeg Jets did beat your Calgary Flames by a score of 5-2. And you know what? We're going to break it down. It's going to be a grand old time here on the Game Over Winnipeg. But before we do that, make sure that you shift into hyperdrive and get ready to have some fun with your new source of all the biggest stories in hockey, bringing a unique style of broadcasting and commentary with a Quebecois flavor. Hyperdrive Hockey combines top tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and a damn fun atmosphere that will drive debates, make you think, and more, like Max's opinion that Connor Hellebuck should win the Hart Trophy, which is factual. Uh, Make sure that you join Max, Daphne, and Kevin every Tuesday and Friday for your fill in on the hockey world. Watching YouTube, the Game Over Network. You guys are watching a hockey live stream. You know where to find a podcast as well. Your favorite podcasting apps. Make sure you go on there and watch/listen to Hyper Drive Hockey. So here on the Game Over Winnipeg, Ruby, we've been trying a little new segment at the top of our shows. Wait, you were muted this whole time. I'm still working out the kinks. You're doing great. The people can hear you. Things are going well. So that's okay. So we are going into the highlight and lowlight segment, and in that you just pick a player from your team. Highlight, they did very well, very good, very amazing, tried their best, deserved a pat on the bum. And then you got the low light player who, maybe didn't have their best game, could have improved on some stuff. So who is your highlights for the Calgary Flames this evening?
Yeah, for sure. So for what I have tonight, for I think one of the players that did a little bit better was Uyghur, actually. I felt like on top of his goal tonight, that he was really in there and just doing well, being in the play, making sure he's blocking those shots, getting those hits, and trying his best offensively to stop Winnipeg from getting too many goals. And then on the lower end, I actually had Anderson, just like yesterday against Minnesota, taking some penalties and kind of slowing Calgary's momentum down, I felt, and taking penalties in places where we really couldn't afford to. So that's why I had Anderson on my lower end.
Yeah, for sure. And with like Uyghur, you mentioned him at the end of the game. At the end of the game, where he made that really nice backdoor pass from the point, he had a couple of flames there. Was surprised it didn't go in. Had a really strong game from a player who might be replacing Pietrangelo on Team Canada. For the Winnipeg Jets, I would say the highlights. It's hard not to go with Velarde, who scored 2 goals, but I think we have to give a shout out to Kyle Connor and just the absolute clinic he put on Miranov. I'm still working on that. People know I'm not the pronouncer of names here, but just him on that goal had an assist or two as well to add. And on that goal, he just kind of cut across, made Miranov look like he was going wide, then just flipped the switch, cut in backhand, and it was just beautiful. And kind of on the low end, it was hard to kind of pick a Winnipeg Jet who I didn't like tonight, but I think in terms of that, I got to go with Vladimir Nemestikov. He's a guy who just the puck died a little bit too much on his stick tonight, and I think we talk about this a lot in Winnipeg, where he's just not the second line center we kind of need going in the playoffs. And I think tonight was just an example of that, and just wasn't quite as dynamic, wasn't as quite as uh, forward, kind of driving the play offensively as you would kind of like. And I think as well, just if you are watching here, let us know your highlights and lowlights. We have the chat bar down below underneath me, and if you type in the chat like this, you will pop up on the screen. It's fun and amazing. Look at that. That could be you. You could be joining in our show right now. And the next thing we're going to talk about while you guys are typing away, putting in your thoughts, is a lot of this game tonight was seemingly played on the boards, especially in that first period. You had a lot of just board play, especially with Calgary dumping it in, rimming it around, trying to keep it to the outside. Do you think that kind of helped the Calgary Flames? Is that something they do often?
So I do feel like Calgary really does play around the boards quite often, and especially tonight, I feel like it was. more than usual, especially losing one of their defensive players, Ball, last night in the Minnesota game did not make it for tonight's game. I think that they were struggling a little bit offensively and they just wanted to create a little more space and time between setting up their plays, getting in position, and making sure that they were in line to try and perfectly execute their play. But unfortunately, it just fell short, and I feel like they got stuck on it a little too much and they couldn't get off the boards when they needed to.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of exemplified like by the last game where that they played on Saturday, about a week and a day ago, just 8 days ago. That's how you would probably say that. But with there was a play where Blake Coleman was able to just beat Kyle Connor along the boards, and it popped out to Coronado, who was able to just shoot it. Just and that's kind of what you kind of mean, right? By like creating space in the middle of the ice by keeping it along the boards. And I do think, and I think that the Winnipeg Jets kind of play a similar style when they play certain teams to take the speed away from them. And I think that makes sense in terms of strategy. Like they did that, the Jets did that against Colorado earlier in the month when they had a lead. They just tried to keep everything to the boards to ensure that the like speed it didn't become a speed game. I think that makes sense when losing a defenseman who plays on the top pair like Kevin Ball as well. And I think with that too, when it comes another thing that played a big factor in this game, you mentioned Rasmus Anderson and his penalties. And with that, let's kind of talk about the special teams that played a role in this game. And let's start with the Calgary power play. They missed on their first opportunity. They got a goal in their second one. What do you think kind of was the strengths of the Calgary power play today?
So definitely looking into the differences between the two power plays, I personally felt like not even just with the power play itself, but in the second period as a whole, somehow Calgary I felt found a little bit more of their energy. And they definitely were going a little harder, being a little more aggressive, and they wanted to take advantage of that second power play. Um, but I think that's where they eventually slowed down because then they started taking the penalties and things were just starting to become unbalanced. But I really loved how things went in that second power play there, especially talking about Uyghur and the goal that he grabbed there. I think that they did better going into the second. And that second opportunity, as opposed to that first, I feel like maybe the first was them getting a feel as to how Winnipeg would do trying to get their penalty kill. And I think once they got a little bit more of a feel for that, that's when they knew what to do going into their second power.
Yeah, and I think that kind of is kind of reflected because I'll talk about kind of the Jets side here. Is the Winnipeg Jets on that first penalty kill for them? They were really good at kind of staying in the middle, and they were good at kind of making sure that Nazem Kadri specifically didn't have a passing option. And so I think what they kind of transitioned to is what we can talk about their goal a little bit here, and they got that one timer from Sharon Govich, and that kind of started to create some chaos. It pulled people out of that protecting the middle and kind of took them out of that kind of diamond that they like to play, or a 1-2-2 when the things get down low. And so Logan Stanley got pulled beneath the goal line. Huberto gets it up to Sharon Govich, gets up to Uyghur, and it just creates a little bit of chaos, gets the penalty kill kind of moving around. And that, I think, played a huge role in the penalty kill or the power play for the Calgary Flames.
I feel like when there is a little bit more noise in front of the net, that's when Calgary really can kind of make their mind up and get something in. But I feel like tonight they definitely did struggle to set up and actually stay set up. I noticed that unfortunately they were a little more scattered tonight. I don't know if they were tired from playing against Minnesota or what it was. They did have quite a few amazing power play opportunities last night in the Minnesota game, and they did take advantage of them and get a lot of goals during those power play opportunities. But tonight it just didn't turn out the same. Winnipeg was a little more careful in the amount of power or penalties that I think they got, and then Calgary ended up getting a little bit more. And I think that really reflected on how the game turned out in the end.
Yeah. So what does the Calgary Flames don't have a bad power play by any means, 18th in the league. What does it kind of look like when it's clicking?
I definitely think when they have an extra man on the ice and they have that ability to take more times to think through their shots, that's what makes the difference between them scoring and them not scoring. I realize that they definitely take more chances at getting a goal when they have an extra man on the ice. rather than when it's just regular 5-on-5. It seems like they struggle to keep up with their components and the speed of the players on the ice. That's once again reflecting the playing against the board. They don't like it being a fast game. They need more time to think and strategize, and that's what happens when they are on the power play. That's when they can get these opportunities. But unfortunately, I do think Winnipeg is a very strong team, regardless if they're a man down or not. They are very quick, they are very aggressive, and Calgary still just couldn't keep up with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that kind of makes sense in terms of what I view Calgary as a team. They are kind of limited in their offense, kind of only scoring 2.7 goals a game, which is I believe 29th in the league going into this game. And with that, it's almost like a wait and see, wait and see, wait and see. Don't panic, especially from a group that's pretty veteran heavy at the top with like Kadri, Huberto, and then they kind of have a rotating right winger at this point. There was a different one today than on last Saturday. But I think it's something similar to what the Jets really like to do, especially last year. Just kind of wait it out, let your goaltending take care of it, especially when Dustin Wolf's in net, and then kind of wait for that opportunity to pounce. So that definitely makes sense from that end.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, oh, sorry, I was
Oh,
just
no,
going to
no,
say I
no, go
agree. And
ahead.
I
No,
think
for
with
sure. Yeah.
not having Dustin Wolf may have actually kind of put the team on edge a little bit, which is, I guess, kind of obvious. So we have been relying on Wolf quite a bit this season. So putting Vladar in net, I think, made a bit of a hiccup at the start of the game, even.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just unfortunate that those back to back those back to backs have to happen, especially you don't want your rookie goaltender playing too much too quickly and kind of wearing him out going down this stretch into the playoffs here. And from that point, let's kind of go on the flip side. We'll kind of flip the script. The Winnipeg Jets scored 2 power play goals on their 2 attempts this evening. What did you see from the Calgary Flames penalty kill that could just kind of let things happen there?
I definitely think that Calgary just wasn't prepared for the amount of aggression that Winnipeg brought when they were on the power play. Calgary, in my opinion, does not do good at a penalty kill. They aren't great at clearing it. They fall short, and I think that's exactly what happened tonight. I don't think they really plan to ever get penalties as much as they do, especially when they aren't great at scoring in the first. I think I saw a fact saying that they are the lowest in the league for first period goals. So when the energy's low in the first and second periods and starts, when they head off into the third and they're getting tired, they end up making those mistakes and getting those penalties. And that's where they're just not prepared, because at that point they don't have the energy that they need to keep up with getting a penalty. So I think that Calgary just didn't have enough energy left in them to deal with the penalty kill and making sure that it didn't end up in their net. And that's where Winnipeg had the advantage, because they could play energetically throughout, and Calgary just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, and I think what a couple of things I hung on to your answer there is the energy and the preparedness. And I think both those things really struggle. I don't know if this is like a thing to say, it's kind of obvious, but like on the back to back, right? Like you're obviously tired. Like the Winnipeg Jets get so many teams and vice versa that come in from Minnesota the night before, just like the Calgary Flames did. And they also get a bunch of teams who come down from Winnipeg, just the way that happens. I'm sure the Flames see a very similar thing with teams going to Edmonton. And I think when you're on the second half, that back to back, you're maybe not preparing so much. You're not having a morning skate. There might be like less opportunities for meetings because you want your guys to rest probably in the room a little bit too. And you're always playing your backup goal. It just seems like a whole avalanche of things that might make you less prepared.
Yeah, and I think even comparing to the game last night, with Calgary getting so many amazing opportunities with their power plays and getting more of an advantage with having an extra man coming into the night and having that script kind of flipped, I don't think they were expecting that.
Yeah. And then I think too with on what the Winnipeg Jets did well on the power play tonight, there's only so many different ways we can describe it. They are first in the league in terms of the power play. It's something that's really drives their success. They're never out of a game, never out of a 1-goal game, because as soon as someone takes a penalty, it just seems automatic. And something so big for them is you talk about energy. And for the Winnipeg Jets, a lot of their power play differences from last year to this year comes from just movement. You see on that first one, that Velarde power play. And a big part of it is just changing positions, changing who's standing where. This almost positionless power play that the Edmonton Oilers kind of coined in past years. And with that, you see on that power play that Ehlers is at the top. He's in the Morrissey spot. He passes it down to Connor, and they kind of overload on that side, who give it to Velarde, and who just makes that move he's so well known for. And I think with the it just kind of creates this kind of confusion, and there's all these different options. And then on the second power play goal, the Winnipeg Jets, they create an entry. They go from east to west go side to side on the entry, and then they kind of have Velarde going on the outside, and then Kyle Connor creates again more movement, more energy. He skates forward, pushes the Calgary defense back, and then creates that space in the middle for Mark Scheifele, which I think just kind of goes off what you said about using that energy on the power play.
Yeah, I agree. I think Winnipeg does a really good job at splitting Calgary's defense when it comes to the power play and going for a goal. They do a good job at making sure that Calgary's defense is confused at the amount of action going on in front of the net. And yeah, Calgary just really doesn't have the same amount of energy going into their penalty kill ability. So it's just what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And well, while we're talking about energy, let's talk about things that are energetic. Let's talk about young journalists. And if you're looking for ways to help an upstart media company employing over 30 young journalists and analysts across Canada, or if you just have a few bucks kicking around, you can head to our Patreon page at patreon.com to support those young journalists at the Game Over Network. There at our website, you'll find multiple tiers featuring different rewards and goodies for helping us grow. I stuttered there. When I read featuring, I almost said the F word. There's extra access, exclusive looks behind the scenes, Discord benefits, merch discounts, opportunities to give us feedback, and you can join for a special shows live where you can interact with hosts while we launch more ways to improve your experience. But look, if you don't have a few bucks sparing around, we know we're young journalists. We don't have a lot of spare bucks there, kind of kicking around. Just go down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Those are very free and easy ways to help the Game Over Network and Game Over Winnipeg. And then when you're done doing that, go over to Game Over Calgary. They don't have a show on right now. Ruby's with me. I got her. And you can go and just subscribe over there too and like it, and then come back right here and say in the chat that you subscribe to Game Over Winnipeg. Super free and easy way to help us. And with that, let's go into the second period. All right, so the second period, you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier when talking about the difference between Calgary playing with Vladar and playing with Dustin Wolf. And we definitely got the Dustin Wolf experience last Saturday when he just put up a wall, wouldn't let the Winnipeg Jets score. With Dan Vladar taking the loss tonight, what's kind of the difference between him in net and when Dustin Wolf is in net?
Yeah, I was actually just talking about this on my live stream last night, but I feel like the team Calgary definitely relies on Dustin Wolf a little too heavily in the sense that they see him as this saving grace that came to their team and that he can do no wrong, basically. And then when Vladar comes in, I feel like there's almost like a tinge of, oh no, what are we going to do now? Because as soon as the Calgary defense, especially losing ball, is a little short or a little tired from back-to-back games, putting Vladar in net, they already feel uneasy, and now it's like they're even more uneasy. But we also were talking in terms of the playoffs and what it would look like, especially knowing that if the playoffs
I think we lost Ruby there for just a second. Whoa, what's going on? Yeah, she looks a little frozen. Maybe we can just go into, while she figures out it on things on her end. I'm just not getting any audio from you. I don't know if some mic disconnect, if your Wi-Fi kind of cut off, but I'll talk about Eric Comrie. And with Eric Comrie is coming to this game and he's lost his last 8 coming into here. In what really is kind of frustrating about these losses for Eric Comrie is Eric Comrie, he seems to be putting up like league average save percentage, putting up league average stats. And what kind of is frustrating on that end is the Winnipeg Jets just don't seem to score when Eric Comrie is in the net. And what that kind of creates is I don't know if it's more of a I don't know if it puts more of a pressure on the offense to kind of put more stuff on, or they're squeezing their sticks. I don't know if they feel that because Connor Hellebuck, the Vezina Hart candidate, is out there, that they kind of have to play differently. They kind of have to play more reserved, so they can't go out freely and score all those goals. But I think that it just seems like a complex, uh, just almost like a big coinky dink, like a big coincidence that doesn't lead, uh, that just doesn't leave a lot to. It just leaves a lot more to be desired, from the sense that you think that they could just give him a little bit more goal support and he would be very well. He's lost his last 8 in a row, and it definitely feels like he has a cap of 3 goals against per game, maybe less so last Saturday, but it feels like the Winnipeg Jets just don't score when he is there on the ice. Let's check in with Ruby. Maybe, I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, maybe Ruby saying, I can't hear you. Yeah, let's do that. Because, this is also a audio thing. Let's see if just cutting out, going back in, might get us back. Ruby there. And Ruby is, oh, there we go. So we're reconnecting.
Perfect.
There we go.
I can hear you now.
There we go. We did it. We are technical geniuses here on the Game Over Network. All right. So back to, I just kind of put a little ramble. I just gave a little talk about Eric Comrie and the difference between him and I almost said Dan Vladar and Connor Hellebuck. The way the Jets play, the Jets just seemingly don't score as much when when Eric Comrie is in the net. So what were you saying about Dan Vladar and Dustin Wolf there?
I was kind of saying about how, Calgary depends very heavily on Wolf. So when they're already uncertain about their defense, I don't know if you heard up to this part, but with Ball being gone and their defense tired, and then now with Vladar, they're already uncertain, and they're more uncertain with him in net. And I was talking about going into the playoffs and knowing that if playoffs were to happen right now, we would be against Winnipeg. I know last night in my show, I was talking about how it's so kind of uneven of a decision. Do you start Wolf first game of the series, or do you start Vladar? Because Wolf has never seen a playoff, doesn't know what it would be like, with the atmosphere obviously very intense, the fan engagement way more, especially with something like the Winnipeg whiteout. So would that intimidate a rookie goalie like Wolf, where you would want to maybe put Vladar in? Or would putting Vladar in potentially make it so Calgary would feel uneasy going into that first game? And Calgary is a very motivation-based team, a very momentum-based team. So if they would lose a first game in a series, they'd be hurting going out into the rest of the games. So I know that that's a big conversation, is the difference between these two goalies. And if Wolf is ready for a playoff, and if Vladar is even ready to keep up with the traction Wolf's been getting.
Yeah, and I think too with that decision, one big thing about that is I think it's, what is your objective? Like, is your objective to win one game this year in the year of our Lord 2025, or is it more about, can we get long-term success? And I think if you're looking at long-term success, like, I don't think Calgary's a team. I don't know if they thought they'd be in the playoffs this year. I don't think they could. I don't know if they're even looking like, once we get in the playoffs, can we win the Stanley Cup? But I think what it more is about is, like, can we get Dustin Wolf the experience so that when we want to go for it, we're not having this question of, well, he's never seen a playoff game. What do you think?
I definitely think that Calgary is not expecting to win the Stanley Cup. Even on our show last night, our chat was chiming in and saying that they would just be happy being in the first round. So I think that's kind of where we're at right now. I know that Calgary has an issue with, when they are in a wild card spot, keeping that momentum and some confidence. And I really do hope that we can make it at least to the first round, so that we can get a rookie goalie some experience and at least make it a little far in the series and not just lose out right away, so that we can get these goalies the time they need and experience kind of the different arenas and different fans to get used to how incredibly high the pressure gets in those type of scenarios.
Yeah, and I think with referring. I think it's so easy to make the Hellebuck to Wolf comparison because Connor Hellebuck was a an American goalie. They both came up. They play very completely different styles, but I think the philosophy needs to kind of be the same. And Connor Hellebuck's first playoff game came in the 2018 season, and he made it all the way to the third round. So I think that maybe with a goalie, maybe, you know, and I think Dustin Wolf just seems so calm, cool, collected, very fun to watch too. I think with all those things considered, I think you just got to kind of just let him play. Just let him play. And with that, I think we'll go to the next segment that we were kind of planning. So we are calling this, people of the Game Over Network, we're calling this Man Crush of the Matchup. And this is just, if you, no salary cap, it's like a claw machine, okay? You can just go to the opposing team's roster, you just grab someone, you take them home. It's like that old rule in the CHL where if you won the WHL, you just picked a guy from the WHL, you took him to the Memorial Cup with you. You just grabbed him, took him, put him in your suitcase, took him away. So if you could take someone from the Winnipeg Jets and just plop him on the Calgary Flames roster today, who would it be, Ruby, and why?
I was thinking about this quite a bit watching the game. I know for a fact that after tonight's game, Velarde would obviously be amazing to have. I think he's pretty amazing tonight. And if I was to base it on tonight's game, I think it would be Velarde. But I think overall, personally, watching Winnipeg and even interestingly, from my fantasy hockey, Ehlers, I would think would be amazing to bring over to Calgary. He's been doing me good on fantasy, so shout out to Ehlers on Winnipeg. But I think between those two, I think maybe leaning more towards Velarde on our team.
Yeah, for sure. And you can't go wrong too. Like they have very different skill sets, but Velarde more of a front of the net type of player. Ehlers kind of more on the rush, super dynamic offensively. And especially, you know, we can add some contract talk in here, like Velarde and RFA at the end of the season, Ehlers a UFA, a little bit more control with Velarde. I think if I had to take a Calgary Flame, just again, plopping them, taking them with me. A lot of guys I kind of like. We've talked about Nazem Kadri on the show before. A guy they really wanted a left-handed guy on that second line to win the face-offs on that side of the ice. I really like him as a Stanley Cup champion. Super guy, can get under your skin. But I think if I had to pick someone, like this game just confirmed to me, I love Mackenzie Weegar. Physical, one of the best 5-on-5 offense defensemen in the league. Team Canada candidate. There's nothing to really not like with this guy. It might drive some coaches some crazy that as a right-handed shot, he prefers the left side. But I think that's more of a just let him cook situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think Uyghur would be a great choice. I think he's everywhere he needs to be when things are getting interesting on the ice. And I never seen him really get in the way in a way that's going to be dangerous for the team. I always see him kind of aiding in any position he can, really.
Yeah, for sure. Just a great 200-foot player. And, you know, 200 feet is pretty far. And if you are enjoying the show so far, you'll probably want more of this, right? Well, make sure that you hit the like button on this video, click subscribe on our channel, and make sure that to check the notification bell so you're alerted whenever we go live. If you're listening to our podcast, please give us a 5-star rating or even write a positive review saying, hey, it's above average. It's really, really good, and it's 5 stars. And if you really like us, make sure to follow us at the Game Over Network on all of your favorite social media platforms. That will also alert you whenever one of our channels go live. It is in the description. All of our little Instagram, Twifastagrams, all those, whatever your poison is, you can find us there. Make sure you follow us on your favorite social media platform. And so we're in the third period. We can talk about whatever we want. And one thing we discussed a little bit earlier is let's do a little bit of a playoff preview. And I think there's a couple different ways to do this. There's the way that some people do. It's like, oh, whose offense is better? Whose defense is better? That's boring. They have that. That's their bit. Whoever this blank individual is in my head trying to tell me that there's only one way to do a preseason season preview. So I'm thinking we do the business model of we're going to do a SWOT analysis, okay? And a SWOT analysis is, and we're going to do it from the Calgary Flames perspective. So we're going to talk about what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. So those are internal factors of the Calgary Flames. what they're good at, what they're bad at, and then we talk about opportunities. What things against the Winnipeg Jets can they pounce on? What are their weaknesses? And then we can talk about threats. What do the Jets do well that can kind of hinder the Calgary Flames' chances of winning? And I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know if this what's it called? What are we? This is I'm losing my words here. This segment. I don't know if this segment's gonna go too well, but let's start with the strengths. What are the strengths of the Calgary Flames, Ruby?
I definitely think when looking at the Calgary Flames, our strengths, other than just Dustin Wolf, is the chemistry on our lineups right now. I definitely think that the way that our lineups have been going and connecting with one another has been very good. I personally, though, was a big fan when we had Rory Cairns on our lineup. Just the way he connected with Peltier was amazing. Seeing these young guys play together, because I know Peltier and Cairns were teammates on the AHL, so coming into playing together on the Flames was amazing to see. And I think any way that you shuffle up our lineup right now, it works. So I think that one of our strengths is that we are very well-rounded in terms of our lineups and the positions that we play. And I think that also just defensively, I really think that our team is good. I love seeing like players like Uyghur, how they're playing right now. Being tonight, he did good, got some points, played as well. I think that we have good defense as well. I think strength, yeah, definitely defense and our lineups, I'm very proud of.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too with something that the Calgary Flames do well is I really like some of their players. Just we talk about them on the boards, and there's some players I just really like uh playing along those boards. Like you look at a guy like Blake Coleman. Blake Coleman is similar to Alex Iafallo on the Jets, just a guy who's an absolute rat to play against. That guy knows how to just get under your skin, do a lot of things well, and he's also a guy who can just put the puck in the net for you. He scored 30 goals last year. Have no idea how many goals he has this year. I'm sorry, you got me. I'm not too inclined to know that single fact, but just a player I really like with 2 cups of experience under his belt.
Yeah, I think that honestly, with the way that Calgary has been playing defensively and they do very well against the boards, I think that going into a playoff scenario, we would have at least those strategies down. And I think players on our team really know one another's play styles well enough that if they were to switch up and start doing some new strategies, that they would know kind of the chemistry enough to know where each other would be situated within these plays to be able to connect some passes and make some shots.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so the next part of a SWOT analysis is the weaknesses, the things that you don't do very well internally on your own team that can kind of lead to a lack of success. And so, as the Calgary Flames, what is their Achilles heel?
I think that the weakness with the Flames is definitely playing a full 60-minute game. They lose their energy so quickly, or they just don't disperse it very consistently. Going into a game, their first periods are always slow, second period is very energy packed, and then the third period is just kind of a scramble to get anything left that's left in them, basically. And that's where you see kind of the fall off of the Flames is they're just not consistent with their momentum. If they're doing good and they get a high lead in the game early in the start, they stop playing energetically. If they have like a 2-goal lead, they're not going to waste their energy. And that's what happens where the other team notices that and then they use that to score and get the score back to even, back to tied, which happens a lot with Calgary. Like last night, it was terrifying seeing us up, I think, 2-3 goals, and Winnipeg brought it up to a 5-4 match in the last period. And Calgary literally had just let off because they thought they were safe. And that's the issue, is Calgary just doesn't play consistently. And when they do get scored against, their momentum just drops and they lose all the energy that they had and they take a big hit just energy wise, play wise. They don't keep up with it.
Yeah, for sure. And here in the chat, we got Tokai number 1 who says the Flames' playoff chances are good because the Avs traded their second best player and Vancouver can't get their 2 stars to be best friends. And that is, absolutely. We talked about that a lot on the Game Over Winnipeg channel. The Winnipeg Jets to the Colorado Avalanche I talk about this like it's Wanda and Thanos from Avengers Endgame, where Wanda is the Winnipeg Jets, and he goes, "You took everything from me," and then Thanos comes in and says, "I don't even know who you are." Like they just beat them one time, and it's like what the Winnipeg Jets go into Colorado and they just try their hardest. They will play Connor Hellebuck on the second back of a back to back just to try and beat Colorado this year. It's just so much how much room they take up in their head, and I think when they traded Mikko Rantanen, I think inside the Winnipeg Jets organization, they got to be like, okay, we got to make some things, we got to make some things happen here because this is our opportunity, this is our chance. And I think with Vancouver too, like because we're talking about teams in that wild card competition too. Yeah, Vancouver just, why can't we be friends? Like it's just like you had such a good thing going last year. Like what do you think about the Avs in Vancouver there, Ruby?
Uh, I I agree. I think that when looking at what's going on in their teams right now as compared to, I do think Calgary, well, I kind of hope that Calgary is going to keep their playoff spot. I would really like to see Calgary make it this year, and I do think that looking at the Habs and everything like that, and going into all these different teams and looking at who could potentially pass or who could stay down, I think Calgary's got a good chance.
Yeah, and with the way the NHL is structured too, like if you have good goaltending, all you need to do is get to the 60th minute and be tied because then you get the magical fairy point that comes down, and then they say this game's worth 3 points now, and you can just take them home. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. And then yeah, let's go back to what we were talking about. So we talked about the strengths of the Calgary Flames. We talked about the weaknesses. Now we are at the opportunity phase. So we've seen the Winnipeg Jets and the Calgary Flames. They've played 3 games against each other now. That's it. These are the last time these teams will see each other this year, unless they go to the playoffs. Are there any sort of tendencies you picked up that the Calgary Flames can take advantage of when playing the Winnipeg Jets?
I definitely think when it comes to taking an opportunity against the Winnipeg Jets, I think it would kind of be more of if they can surprise the Jets, do something that they don't do often. And I think that's where we could catch Winnipeg and get them a little bit off guard there because Calgary is not going to come in swinging. They're not really going to come in aggressive. I know that second period got a little bit hairy there, but usually Calgary will not instigate too heavily until like the score is getting a little too out of hand and they're basically just getting emotional at that point. So I feel like if coming out in that first period, Calgary had the energy that they don't usually have and the aggression that they don't usually have, then Winnipeg would be caught off guard in a way that might work in favor of Calgary to slip in and get some goals rather than just beating around the boards, trying to not cause too much of a rift in the waters and just trying their very best to get to the net, just instead being aggressive and getting there at no means necessary.
Yeah, and I think one thing too that I really like about Calgary Flames team is they have they have a few really good defensemen on the back end, especially as puck movers. And I think if there's one thing we've seen the Winnipeg Jets are susceptible to, that's a word. Is when teams can get some stretch passes on them and get behind their defense. We saw this against a team like Colorado was really good at it. Seattle, surprisingly, is really good at stretching the ice, and the Dallas Stars, they like to set up Rupe Hintz. If you can get a stretch pass on the Winnipeg Jets or take advantage of them off the rush, or like break them up on the rush in the neutral zone, and you counterattack with some speed, and your defense moving the puck's a really big part of that, I think you can take advantage of them. So I think, do the Calgary Flames are they a team that really, do they ever like stretch the ice? Do they get guys up the ice really fast? Or is that just something where you might adjust to that for the playoffs?
I think that that might be something that Calgary does have to work a little bit better on. They aren't really good at separating when it comes to playing around the ice. I feel like they're definitely grouped up a little bit more, so they're not looking to make long stretch passes across. They try to keep their positionings tight, and they don't like to create too much space on the ice where it's going to be kind of unsure of where the puck's going to go or who's going to grab it. They like to stay close. They like it along the boards. They like it slow, so like those stretch kind of passes where they might not connect is what Calgary is not a big fan of. So I think going into the playoffs, if they could kind of be more successful in that type of play, I think that it could be beneficial against a team like Winnipeg.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something too is just like another opportunity or another strength is just like the goaltending of Dustin Wolf. If you have a goalie who you can't score on, what are you going to do? A goaltender like Dustin Wolf, like we've seen it so many times, can win you a series, especially a guy who, where the expectations, he's blown them out of the water, but like, what else? What else? He has nothing left to prove. Like, he can just go out there. If he wins the series, loses the series, no one's going to blame that guy. So that's just a guy who can play some carefree hockey in the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely think the only concern that I have in terms of Dustin Wolf is going into the playoffs, playing harder teams, playing against Winnipeg, and like potentially for the whole 7 games. He definitely has been hyped up very heavily by the media, and I'm a very if everyone's been watching any of the Calgary kind of videos and me guesting, I'm a very like media based type person when it comes to looking at the performance of the team, because I know the media definitely does have an impact on performance of the players. And I think that the amount of coverage we've been giving Wolf could potentially break him down if he starts making mistakes, because he feels so confident going into these games. And what's going to happen when he thinks he just gave it his all, but he still somehow didn't do well? That's where I think he's going to maybe stutter step a bit if the media takes it too high, to the point that it puts a lot of false confidence into him going into the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I was going to ask you this question, but I forgot. When it comes to the difference between Dustin Wolf and Dan Vladar, you also said you weren't sure who they might start in the playoffs. Do they cover those players differently? Like when it comes to if Dan Vladar and Dustin Wolf both let in a similar type of goal, do they give Wolf more of a pass, and are they more critical of Vladar in that way?
So I think that the team definitely notices, and I think everyone kind of notices, that Dustin Wolf is quick in the net. He's small, but he's fast. And he can just go and get those. Like, if he's on one side of the net and the opposing team passes it super quick or wraps around, whatever, he's already there. Like, he knew it was happening. So the team can let off a bit and focus more on getting the puck out of their zone. But when it comes to Vladar, he's a little more slow moving, and he's not, if there's too much noise in front of the net, he gets confused. And that's where the opposing team can sneak one in, because he's not able to do it all on his own, and that's where he relies on the defense of Calgary a little heavily, where Calgary cannot focus as much on making sure that they get that puck out and then they can get their own scoring chance. Instead, they are so heavily focused on making sure it doesn't get to Vladar, unfortunately, because they can't fully trust him in a sense like that. So I feel like that's the difference between those two right now, and the performance of the team is that they're more trusting of Wolf and Net to be where he needs to be and to keep his eye on the puck, whereas Vladar struggles a little more to move around and get to where he needs to be, so he relies on the team themselves to block.
Yeah, and I think that makes so much sense with your answer, because there was when you were talking about Dustin Wolf's mobility and how they can kind of let off a little bit, I think about the difference in penalty killing tactics almost as well too, because in the last game against the Winnipeg Jets, the Calgary Flames were a little bit more spread out, and when they were able to do that, Kyle Connor, I remember they did an east to west pass. Kyle Connor took a one timer, and I was like, oh, that's a goal, but Dustin Wolf was already there. And on the opposite side, you see that Gabriel Velarde goal, and all four players, I'm surprised they didn't stop him, because um, they were so close in on him, but they kind of collapsed on Gabriel Velarde, and you kind of see they're more tight around him. They might not trust him as much to kind of make those plays, so they have to clear it a lot faster. And
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, yeah, nice. Okay, so with that, let's go to threats. Big rain cloud, scary things that, like, what do the Winnipeg Jets do really well in your mind that could hinder the Calgary Flames playoff chances?
Yeah, I think that, like I've been kind of saying, Winnipeg does have that faster, more aggressive energy when it comes to even just like they notice when they have an opportunity to score, or when Calgary is tired or falling short, or when they're inconsistent. I think Winnipeg is very good at like noticing the shift of energy of the team they're playing against. And so they really utilize their lines and their players to make sure that they have who they want out when things are going wrong or when things are going good. And so when it comes to going against a team like Calgary, who is kind of like lets off a bit and doesn't want to be all up in another team's face if they don't need to be, Winnipeg getting there and staying in the offensive zone more often is very threatening to a team like Calgary, who doesn't want to do that back unless like they actually are confident in the play that they have set up, because a lot of the times Calgary will go in for a play and then they won't necessarily connect a shot or a pass, and the other team will just take away with it, and Calgary's not prepared to answer back and defend on even a goalie like Vladar tonight. So I think in terms of threats, it's really based on energy and aggression. Like Calgary just can't keep up when things are too heavy and fast paced. And that's where Winnipeg is actually beneficial in and actually successful at, is kind of adapting to whatever speed the game is and using that to their advantage.
That's such a better answer than I was going to say, because I was going to say power play and Connor Hellebuck. So that sounds like a great way to kind of round out our SWOT analysis of a potential playoff series against the Winnipeg Jets. That turned out pretty good. I think, I'm gonna pat ourselves on the back there for doing a lovely business type analysis of a potential playoff series. And while there might not have been a better way to do that, but what better way to support something you love than by repping it on yourself? Game Over Winnipeg's apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs. This is the ad read. We are going into the question asking segment. Ask your questions now. Type them now while I'm reading this. Whether you feel the nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, or you want to wear your love of goalies with our live or die by the goalies design, we have you covered. Designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg. Use the QR code on stream now to have a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. And also, while I have you here, look at this beautiful mug. This is the Game Over Winnipeg mug. Everyone in my family got these for Christmas. It's just a beautiful, lovely sentiment. And if you have anyone with a birthday coming up, just get them that. Like it's easy. They're gonna think it's like $50,000. They're so nice, and they'll be like, "Wow, they love me." That's the end of the read. Okay, let's get to some questions. Chat hasn't been too active. Our chat on Friday was bumping, especially after that trade. And we'll ask you a question to kind of get this thing going. Oh, here we go. What should Calgary do with that $25 million in cap space? What do you think, Ruby?
Oh, goodness. I honestly, when it comes to the trade questions, I get so worried because Calgary has made trades before that I don't agree with, or that actually did end up doing pretty well. Like, I don't know. I'm not too upset with what the team looks like right now. So when it comes to looking at the trade deadline and looking who they want to pick up, I have no one in mind. Like my mind is blank because I just don't want to mess up what's happening right now, but I know it's inevitable. But I don't know what Calgary is thinking.
I think with Calgary, because I've watched their last couple of games. I did a game with Anatan on last Saturday, and I've done a game with Anatan when I went on Game Over Vancouver, Ottawa one time, and then I did one of the games at the beginning of the year. And I think this year is such free money for Calgary that maybe you do a little bit of soft adding. I don't know how they feel about Kuzmenko. I think he's been scratched for quite a bit. If you can get a decent return for him, maybe. But I think if you have a bunch of cap space, something you can do as the Calgary Flames is kind of be the third team in on a trade. They send them to you, so you send them somewhere else, and you kind of just take back the salary, and you gain just a few draft picks that way. That maybe you use those to add some players for your playoff run, to just kind of round out the team. Maybe add some depth. Nothing too big. I don't think you want to do that at this point. But what do you think of that idea?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I know that Kuzmenko has been a topic of discussion often throughout this year. He's had some bad moments, but I know yesterday he was doing pretty well. So I think for him, it's definitely a toss up on what the team wants to do with a player like Kuzmenko right now. But I definitely think that adding some players that just give a little bit more to the team but not change things too drastically would be beneficial. I know that right now, I feel like there is a good balance of veterans to kind of rookie or younger players. But I think that Calgary is beginning to see the value in bringing up younger players right now. So I think even looking at some younger players with promise and bringing them up might add some more skill to the Calgary's team right now. Looking into the next few years, looking into trying to get into the playoffs and actually stay, I think that would be beneficial to a team like Calgary.
Yeah, and I think too, like even if you move a guy like Kuzmenko, that kind of gives you the opportunity to bring in. I'm sorry, his name's Rory Cairns.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, and like then just give him that lineup because as we talked about with Dustin Wolf, I don't know if the Calgary Flames have too much appetite to re-sign a guy like Kuzmenko, and I think with a guy like Rory Cairns, it's the same type of thing where we're not trying to win the Stanley Cup this year, but if we can maybe go for it in 2-3 years, maybe those are the guys who kind of help us bring us there, and getting them this experience now might be super beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm personally a really big fan of what Rory Cairns did in his 5 games with Calgary so far, and I really hope that we see more of him at some point this season. I don't know if that will be possible, but I think looking on the team for good would be beneficial, and getting more guys that have that same amount of energy and passion that starting into playing with the NHL, getting them on a team like Calgary right now would be very good for looking to building to be in the playoffs in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, for sure. Then we have Goldie Electric. That's one heck of a name, Goldie Electric. That's awesome. I'm not stealing that. I like my name, but I definitely appreciate it. And he says the Jets are starting to feel comfortable. Starting to feeling. Oh, that's a typo. He deleted it, but I got the essence. They said he started to feel comfortable with Comrie in nets. He might be fixing his grammar there. That different verb tense. That's okay. He said they started feeling more comfortable with Comrie in nets, and it was really nice to give him some goal support, which is super nice in terms of giving Hellebuck some rest, which is a hot topic here. I think one thing that's interesting that they did tonight, and I said I've shot out a feeler to some people in my family about. I think that Comrie should get every back to back, and I think that's just the goalie's job. But I think also when a team like Calgary comes into a your city, I think Eric Comrie should also play those games when they're playing a tired team, and that's just a creative way to get him some more starts. All right, and then here's a Flames question from Tokai number. Yo, thanks Tokai number 1 for being in the chat all game today. What if scenario Sam Bennett was able to pull up during that combine? Draisaitl falls to the Flames. What could we have done with a Draisaitl, Kachuk, Goudreau, Monahan core? What a what if? What do you think about that, Ruby?
I think I lost some of that there. That was so long. With a what?
What? So he's basically saying, what if Sam Bennett back in that combine? What if he's able to do a pull up, and then the Edmonton Oilers are so impressed by this one single pull up, they're like, oh my god, he can do a pull up. He's a big kid now. We need this man, Sam Bennett, because Sam Bennett going to the 2014 draft was rated. He was rated 1 or 2 to the point where when the Florida Panthers went up to the podium, Dale Talon was the GM at the time. He goes, I'm pulling up my mic here. He goes, the Florida Panthers select from the OHL, and then he goes, pause for comedic effect, because they didn't know that it was going to be either Aaron Ekblad or Sam Bennett going first overall. And so what ended up happening is Sam Bennett fell all the way to 4, supposedly because he couldn't do a pull-up at the draft combine. And so what he's saying is, what if and it was a big core 4 at that moment between him, Sam Reinhart, who played with my cousin in Kootenay, Draisaitl and Bennett. And so he's basically saying, what if, let's say in that 2022 season where you had Kachuk, Goudreau, Lindholm, and what would their ceiling be with a Draisaitl, Kachuk, Goudreau, Monahan core? I guess throughout all those years. That's crazy.
I think if we had, like, are they saying if Draisaitl was on Calgary?
Yeah, they're saying, like, what if we reverse time and and on that draft day, Sam Bennett goes to Edmonton at 3, and then Draisaitl falls to Calgary at 4.
Hmm. I think that if we had Draisaitl in that time, I actually don't know because I feel like lately Draisaitl's been picking up, but then I don't think it was too much of a breakout in like skill and points right away. But I think that if we had kept him around and built up with him, I think we'd be in a much better spot than we are now. I think that it would be so interesting to see how we worked with the chemistry of the team. I know that saying stuff like this, like Edmonton's gonna come find me, but like they're gonna be like, "Don't take him," like we would ever. But I think looking at it now, I like Draisaitl on Edmonton. I don't know how he would do chemistry wise with the players we have on Calgary right now, but I think that if everything in a perfect world worked out and he got along with the people on our team and it was built up really well, I don't even know who he'd be replacing right now, but I think we might be in a little bit of a better spot. I think he would benefit our team pretty well.
I think this sounds like a YouTube video idea that someone could do over on Game Over Calgary. I think that's just such a lot of like, because you got to think about cap space and this and that. It's such a domino effect on how the
Yeah,
league itself is with this person just being inserted into the Calgary that I think a
yeah.
really good I think a really interesting answer would be how would that 2015 series go if you had but Sam Bennett was so good in that. I don't know. Again, that's a YouTube. See a Tokai number one.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's a wave goodbye. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's just a huge. I think that's a YouTube video. That's an opportunity for someone to do some research on and do. That's a loaded
Mm-hmm.
question. And yeah. Oh, did Ruby freeze? That's okay. We'll wrap up the show here. All right. Oh, we're frozen again. Oh, and we are cutting out. Okay. So, if we were going to fix that, Ruby might be able to come back. But let's, before we kind of go into that, applause for that analysis. Thank you. Oh, it's a clap. It's smaller for me. It looks like a wave as opposed to like the sounds being made from here. Yeah, thanks Tokai number one. I think that, that's such a good YouTube video idea. I think someone should definitely steal that. All right, we'll wrap it up here. Ruby's hat. We're having more audio things again. Thank you so much for watching Game Over Winnipeg and Game Over Montreal. We came together for the last time this season. We'll be back next season. Unless there's a playoff series, and then we'll be here after every single game. The next game for Game Over Winnipeg is against the Montreal Canadiens. That's going to start at 6 o'clock. We'll be on Game Over Montreal for that. The next one for Game Over Calgary will also be on Tuesday. That'll be at, doing some quick math, 7 p.m. Central Time. So that's going to be very nice. Thank you, Tokai number one. Tokai number one says, great show, guys. And with that, we are going to head out of here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click like and subscribe on the video. Even if you're a Calgary fan, it just helps in general. Yeah, come on, just give us some support. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys next time. Oh, hit the button. There we go.